One of the most interesting little tidbits that we learned from Taylor Swift's interview with Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce on New Heights is that her brand new album, The Life of a Showgirl, features absolutely no Jack Antonoff. That was one of the biggest takeaways for me as a lover of the music, first and foremost. We love to talk about Taylor Swift's relationships in the public eye, but I think that a relationship or relationships that we don't pay enough attention to are her creative collaborations and relationships. Because in the grand scheme of things, as a performing artist and as a pop artist specifically, this is like one of the most collaborative genres in music, Taylor has kept her circle very small, specifically when it comes to creating her pop albums and her big commercial juggernauts. She has really only ever entrusted that to the likes of Jack Antonoff and Max Martin. The brief experiments that she's had away from them, such as with Joel Little, have not yielded great results for her. So it really is between these kind of two titans of industry, and Ilya and Shellback, who kind of fall under the Max Martin protege school. It falls to these two men to create Taylor Swift's pop music legacy. And she hasn't worked with Max Martin since 2017, and Jack Antonoff has been her main collaborator for Folklore, Evermore, Midnights, the Torture Poets department. So leaving him behind or leaving him off the record entirely is a real seismic shift in her approach to her creativity, which is the thing that I am most interested in. So I thought that in today's video, I could kind of go through the discography of pop songs, specifically pop hits, bangers, if you will, by Taylor Swift, produced by Max Martin and Jack Antonoff, compare and contrast, see what we can ascertain. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach, I'm the astrologist. If you're new here, you should subscribe because you're about to have a lot of fun stuff coming your way with Taylor Swift release month, release week, release year. It is about to blow the hell up. And you need to go to Patreon, patreon.com/astrologist, to get way more content than you could ever dream, desire, or imagine right into your screen at all times of the day. So go to the Patreon, you won't regret it. Tour season is almost over. Jonas Brothers are halfway through, Tate McRae is gonna wrap up soon, and if you don't lock in your tickets now, this might be your last chance to see them live for a while, which is why I want to give the sponsor of today's video, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. They've got more than 70,000 events, concerts, sports, festivals, you name it. Right now, you can still catch artists like the Jonas Brothers and Tate McRae before their tours wrap, and later this year, the torch passes to the iconic Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter, both hitting the road for limited runs that you certainly do not want to miss, and almost even more certainly probably can't get tickets to. I love using SeatGeek because it makes finding tickets simple and stress-free. Every ticket gets a 1 to 10 deal score, so you know you're getting the best bang for your buck. Green dot is a good deal and red dot is a bad deal. And every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. Because I've got you covered, use code SWIFTOLOGIST10 for 10% off tickets at SeatGeek. Just click the link in the description so the code's automatically added to your account. Don't miss the last shows of the summer or these divas that are just beginning. Thank you again so much to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's video. I guess this is kind of like a Jack Antonoff versus Max Martin kind of video, but I'm looking at it more holistically than that because I do think that both of these collaborators are two of the best that she's ever worked with, and they have created something indelible in Taylor Swift's catalog. So we have to clap and cheer for both of them. I personally love both of their contributions to Taylor's discography. And when I was looking at my playlist of the songs that I made, which is about 42, by the way, and it's like an even split. It's pretty much an even split when it comes to the pop bangers of who's responsible for what. I was torn as to who I thought was better and who I thought was doing it better. So I thought maybe I'll do a little bit of research into who Max and Jack are. I mean, obviously I'm very familiar with them as a lover of pop music and a cultural commentator. I know who they are, but I thought investigating really who they are to Taylor Swift and what their approach to creativity separately and together with her is would be a fruitful exercise. Now this video is unscripted, okay? I don't have any script for this. I just decided I wanted to make this video. I did some research, I made some notes, and then we're gonna do a tier ranking of all the pop bangers and try and ascertain like what is the specific difference between a Jack Antonoff Taylor Swift pop song and a Max Martin Taylor Swift pop song. Can we note any sort of developments that have been made over the years? What can each of them do that the other can't? Why is Taylor drawn to each of those producers on different projects? I think there are many, many answers to unpack and discover. But first of all, I think that we should do some groundwork on who these producers are because that plays a big hand into how they create. So Max Martin is, commonly known as the architect of modern pop. When you think of a pop song, you're generally thinking of a Max Martin song if you are of the 21st century. Taylor Swift also, I think this is important to note, when she was thinking, I want to make a pop song before she ever did, in her mind, the pop songs that she would have been trying to create would have been Max Martin creations. She grew up on the likes of Britney Spears, NSYNC, and the Backstreet Boys. And that is who Max Martin really made his name in the US as being a big hit provider for. Oops, I Did It Again, Baby One More Time, I Want It That Way, It's Gonna Be Me, you name it, Max Martin produced it. Max has co-written or written 27 Billboard Hot 100 #1 singles, including Katy Perry, Roar, I Kissed a Girl, Maroon 5. He's done some terrorism with them, One More Night. And of course, with Taylor, Shake It Off, Blank Space, Bad Blood. Also, he's done a lot of work with The Weeknd, Blinding Lights, for example. He has been all over the place. And only Paul McCartney has more #1 hits as a songwriter than Max Martin does, which is extremely crazy that a producer can have such a prolific impact on a chart despite never really having sung on it. There were definitely some pop blueprints that Max Martin worked on before he got to Taylor. I mean, Kelly Clarkson's Since You've Been Gone, hello, have you heard of these iconic and amazing Y2K pop songs? A lot of them were produced by Max Martin, and he really pioneered this kind of approach to creativity called the writing camp, which is a very collaborative, vision-driven session where a bunch of creatives come together and they strive to create the perfect song. And that is kind of like his signature production style and focus. He's really focused on the song above all else. It's the song, the melody of the song, the melodic math that he creates. That takes priority over the vocal performance. It takes priority over the lyrics. It takes priority over the instrumentation. It is the melodic pop math that he has concocted that has proven to be a winning formula over and over again. I always think of when Lord and Jack Antonoff, they showed green light to Max Martin, I believe, and he said, this song is wrong. And that really is how he thinks about pop music. Like there is a specific certain formula to it, and you can experiment and, play around with the formula, but the formula is the formula. It can't really change that much. So what is Max Martin's signature production style? Polished, punchy, addictive pop sounds. But of course, he creates these kind of clean, uncluttered arrangements, even when they sound loud, with one sound kind of introduced at a time, building up towards a crescendo. He has a strong foundational groove, whether it's the drums, the bass, or the chords. That can differ depending on who he's working with. And Max Martin is also an incredible vocal producer. And I think that this is a skill that Jack Antonoff lacks or is not as good at. Max Martin is amazing at vocal stacking and harmonies and double tracking to create these big choruses, which is why I think someone like Ariana Grande is very drawn to working with Max Martin. She also kind of operates on a melodic math that resonates with him. And again, that vocal production is really essential. I mean, think of the characters that he is most known for introducing to the world, one of which is Britney Spears. That nasal tone is something that Max literally instructed her on how to do. That's not her natural voice. And I also think that he really helped Taylor develop a talk, singing, conversational approach to pop music that she did not have before she worked with him. And she carried with her all the way through the rest of her pop experiments, whether she was working with him or not. Now, what's the dynamic when you're working with Max Martin? Well, he's been in the industry for a long time. He is expensive. He's difficult to work with because he is hard to get. And he is very much often in a position of being the coach or the mentor. And that is something that Taylor mentioned in this New Heights interview. She said that the first time that she worked with Max, it was really more of like student. She was learning from him as they were creating together. Whereas this time around for Life of a Showgirl, she feels as though they are on more equal footing. They are on a level playing ground. They all have something equal to contribute to the conversation. And that says something to me about their early collaborations, in that Taylor maybe didn't feel as empowered to make creative decisions as she might have been with someone like Jack Antonoff, who is definitely more of a personal friend and has a completely different approach to creativity than Max does. I think Taylor definitely respected what Max did, but after Reputation, I think she was ready to have more creative control. Specifically when she lost her master's and she started doing the Taylor's Version project, it would make sense to me that she would want her collaborator to be someone that basically just fulfills her wishes, not someone that has like a formula or a prescription that she has to abide by or follow. Shellback is Max Martin's longtime collaborator. He co-produces and co-writes a lot of the major hits that he works on with Taylor Swift. From what I can tell, Shellback seems to be a little bit more involved in the programming and the instrumental expertise of it all, whereas Max is really kind of focused on the vision and the songwriting and the melody. And that's how they complement each other. Now let's talk about Jack Antonoff. So who was Jack Antonoff before Taylor Swift put him on the map as one of the biggest pop producers? Kind of no one. Not that he was like no one entirely in the world, but he wasn't producing for anyone of the likes or the caliber of a Taylor Swift. It was only after he worked with Taylor Swift on 1989 that he then went on to produce many iconic pop girl albums like Melodrama for Lorde and NFR for Lana Del Rey, and so many more pop girls. But notably, pretty much all of Taylor Swift's works post 1989 he has had a heavy involvement with. Jack Antonoff was actually more known for being a solo artist, or rather an artist in a band. The band was called Fun. Some Nights Heard of It, Greatest Song Ever Made, We Are Young, a really annoying song that everybody loves. He's very millennial, a little bit chuggy, and his signature production style really emphasizes the emotional honesty of a song. He's all about helping the artist come up with what they want to say and facilitating a song structure around what they want to say. He's really into like having textures on his songs. He has like 80s style synths, this analog gear. He's really into like old instruments and recording tools, layered vocals, live band energy, but also he has this kind of like glitchy 80s synth obsession. It is a very specific Jack Antonoff sound. And like, if you're even slightly familiar with him, you know exactly what that is. He has a very relational approach when he's working with artists. So he often will talk to people before they begin working on something together and trying to learn more about who they are are as a person and what their story is, it seems to me that Jack Antonoff would not really be able to be plopped into a room and just create a song for someone. He needs to have some sort of connection to the artist that he's creating with. Whereas with Max Martin, it's about the formula, the song, the melody, right? So theoretically, anyone could get in that room and sing the song that's being created. Of course, it helps Max when he has an equal partner that can bring something to the table that he can't creatively, but that doesn't mean that he can't create something without it. I'm not 100% sure that Jack Antonoff could be creating these great pop girl moment songs if he wasn't kind of working in synergy with a pop girl. Jack is not obsessed with technical perfection and melodic math like Max Martin. He is into kind of like happy accidents and weird like flares, things that don't really belong in standard pop songs. The Go 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 and Getaway Car, for example, that's a very like Bleachers touch that he gave to a Taylor Swift song. Many of his sounds are also built from scratch. He doesn't use presets on his synths, and he has these transitional sounds and dialed in tones that frequently just become part of the arrangements, which is why I think his work, specifically on something like Midnights when you're talking about pop, sounds very Jack and Taylor. There's a specific kind of vibe that they specifically have created together. All right, now that we had that little brief introduction to the players and the lay of the land, I think that we should get right into the ranking of it all. Hey, how y'all doing? Okay, here I am. These are the categories that we're going to be using to rank here and to discuss. I'm really just using this as like a jumping off point to talk about the collaborations overall, and I'm going, I think, pretty much in chronological order. So the red, as you can see, is Max Martin, and the blue is Jack Antonoff. So the categories are number one, Crown Jewels. So this is a song that is a number one hit that is considered a quintessential Taylor Swift number. I'm curious to see where all of these are going to fall and who's going to have more solid attempts rather than Crown Jewels. Then we have Best Supporting Actress, which is the second category, obviously. This is like a song that's like almost really great, but maybe not considered like an iconoclast, perfect Taylor Swift pop song. Maybe it's just a really good pop song, or maybe it's like a B-tier Taylor Swift pop song. A solid attempt is basically like an album track that wasn't a single, but isn't filler. That's kind of what I'm thinking that. We Didn't Need This, self-explanatory, and Jail is there too. I actually don't foresee anything here going to jail except for one diva, and you're going to be gagged and surprised when she goes there, but she's going to jail and she's staying. First up, why don't we start with the first collaboration we ever heard, the first pop song that Taylor Swift has ever created with Max Martin or with anyone. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. Crown Jewel, instantly. This song completely reoriented Taylor Swift's career. This is one of the best pop songs of the 2010s, of the 2000s actually in general. It is so unbelievably bratty and catchy and fun, and it retains what is so good about Taylor Swift while pushing her in a completely different direction. At this point, when We Are Never came out, like this level of bubblegum pop, and it truly was bubblegum pop, was jarring from a Taylor Swift. We had just come off of I Don't Think You Should Wait, I Think You Should Speak Now, Crying Girl. This was not Crying Girl. This was I'm Getting Revenge Girl. And of course, that girl had always existed. We know better than revenge. We know Should Have Said No. But she was kind of pivoting her self-image and reintroducing herself to the public in a way. She was cool. She was kind of disconnected. The thing about Max Martin's production to me is that more often than not, it doesn't sound dated. I think that Jack Antonoff's production work will maybe age a little bit less well because it's not as timeless. Max Martin is still operating off of a playbook that he created in the 90s, and it still sounds relevant and fresh when applied correctly to the right artist today. We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together is perfect because it is the exact confluence of what Max Martin is really good at, which is melodic math and melodic songwriting, and what Taylor Swift is really good at, which is like being funny and self-aware and writing in a way that is clever and detached, but also silly and connected. There is something very kismet and perfect about We Are Never. It also was her very first number one hit. This was Taylor's first taste of being a pop star, and it was sweeter than fiction, if you will, if you will. Up next, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go with, I think this is maybe a little bit out of order. Let's do I Knew You Were Trouble next. I Knew You Were Trouble, a crown jewel. Another crown jewel. I mean, when you think of Taylor Swift, at this point, she has so many hits that it's kind of hard to just like narrow it down to one. But there was a period of time when I Knew You Were Trouble was the Taylor Swift song. And I would say that this one is the song that made her cool. We Are Never made her noticed, but I think that people generally, like the general populace who is the target audience for a pop song, found it a little bit irritating after a while. I Knew You Were Trouble felt really cool and new and distinct because it incorporated that huge dubstep drop that became a meme heard around the world. I Knew You Were Trouble actually in many countries, I think, outcharted We Are Never, so it definitely had a lot of staying power. I think in the UK it was really, really popular. It's one of those songs that I think of the Max Martin collaborations hasn't aged as well just because that specific like dubstep sound is so 2012, 2013, 2014. But what I will say is Taylor was 100% ahead of the curve when it came to incorporating dubstep into bubblegum pop songs. When you hear something like Break Free by Ariana Grande, also produced by Max Martin, you can't help but remember that I Knew You Were Trouble came before it. Like there is definitely an influence there. Even though the songs are totally different, there's a shared DNA. Up next is 22. Again, it is a crown jewel, and you're going to hear me saying this over and over with the Max Martin songs, because when you think of a pop song, like what a pop song is, what a pop song is supposed to do, that is what Max Martin is really, 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 really good at. And I'll expand more on this when we get to 1989. But 22 is, again, it's just fun. It's infectious. I think this one has aged really well. This is also a standout song from Red. I think at the time it wasn't perceived as this like huge, big, massive hit, whereas now it is definitely viewed as one of the most important songs on Red. I mean, important enough to be included on the Eras tour. It was fun, and it really reflected a specific period of time in her life. So we clap and we cheer. Message in a Bottle. We didn't need this. We didn't need this. Message in a Bottle is useful though, because it shows us what a first draft of Taylor and Max working together looks like. I've always felt that Message in a Bottle was the very first thing they worked together just to get it out of their system. Max Martin was like, Taylor, write what you think a pop song sounds like, what you think a Swedish, like hooky, addictive pop song that you hear at the grocery store. What does that sound like? And she came up with this. And then they said, okay, now that we've got that like first draft out of our system, we can get onto the better draft. The first draft is never the best. So I think that everything that we discussed that is in the crown jewel came after Message in a Bottle. And Message in a Bottle is annoying. I'd say it's probably like the worst example of a Max Martin song. It's successful in the sense that it gets in your head and it is catchy and you remember it every time you hear it again, but do you like it? That's really the fine line that you walk with a catchy, addictive pop song. From a Shake It Off to a Happy by Pharrell Williams, one is fun and effervescent, the other one is really annoying and sounds like a brainworm. So that's kind of the drawback of doing a Max Martin formula from time to time. Shake It Off. Crown jewel. I mean, what the hell else am I supposed to do? I might as well just go and put all of the 1989 singles in there. We got to put Blank Space up there. There she goes. See her? Style, crown jewel. Wildest Dreams, best supporting actress. Let's talk about what makes these songs so good. Shake It Off, Blank Space, and Style. Now, the reason why I think Taylor really wanted to work with Max Martin more fluidly on 1989 was because she was aiming for a very specific thing. She wanted pop girl domination. She wanted hits that were so good and they were so undeniable that people would overlook the fact that it was Taylor Swift who was making them. Because remember, at this moment in time, there was resistance to Taylor Swift being a pop star. Some people felt it inauthentic. She lost a lot of diehard fans along the way, gained many too. But, you know, there was a specific kind of like hemorrhaging when it came to the way that Taylor approached going pop. It was sudden. Her label didn't like it very much. And I think that something that Max really provided for her was a place for her to play with her vocals and to use her vocals as like an instrument or a tool to make a pop song more interesting. She definitely tried this first with We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. We have that like spoken word thing at the end of the bridge before that last chorus. That becomes kind of a signature that Taylor does with Max over and over again. She also does it on Shake It Off. There's a little bit of it on Blank Space too. Bad Blood has a little bit of it. I mean, there is a lot of like conversational, chatty vibe to Taylor in pop going forward from this point onwards. And I think that Max is really fluent in assembling the bulletproof pop song. Taylor Swift is really good at songwriting and also following instructions. So I think that this exercise of creating 1989 was about tempering her instinct to be wordy and to be overwhelming with her language and to focus really heavily on the storytelling. Taylor was not that focused on the storytelling when it came to 1989. It was atmospheric, it was world building, it was branding, it was a moment. It was really kind of like vibes over narrative, and that had never taken place in the Taylor Swift discography before. And the way that Max Martin creates songs really supports and enhances that approach. So it makes total sense to me that she worked with Max a lot on this record. What is very interesting is what didn't make it onto 1989 that belonged to Jack Antonoff, but we'll get to that when we get there. Let's look at the other songs from 1989. What else do we have here? All You Had to Do Was Stay, Best Supporting Actress. The thing with 1989 is pretty much every single song could have been a hit and could have been a single. It's a pretty short, pretty tight and concise album, and those Max Martin choruses are bulletproof for a reason. Melodic math, genius formula, it works over and over again. What I think Taylor is able to bring to the table here is like a flavor and a perspective that like other songwriters might not be able to assert in a conversation with Max Martin. I think a lot of the times, especially back in the day, the labels would send their female artists to Sweden and say, you're going to cut a song with Max Martin. It wasn't, you're going to write a song with Max Martin. It was more, you either have this song that needs to be fixed by Max Martin, or we're sending you there to go and get one. And I think that when Taylor approached Max Martin, it was very much, you know, she's bending the knee, I'm here to learn, but also don't forget that I am the HBIC at the end of the day. So while I do think she took suggestions from him, 1989 is still distinctly Taylor Swift. And if we're returning to that sort of approach, I think we can expect the life of a showgirl to be a lot more conceptual or abstract and a lot less diaristic. But she will never tell you that she's not being diaristic and confessional anymore. That's not how she positioned 1989. She positioned it in the exact way that she positioned Showgirl in this New Heights interview. She was like, just because I'm really focused on creating cohesive, concise, tight pop doesn't mean that the lyrics are going to be superfluous. And something that Max said to her when they reunited for this period of time was, I love what you did on Folklore. How can we bring that back into our collaboration? So I think, again, for 1989, Taylor parked her most writerly instincts and tuned into, I'm a pop star. What does being a pop star look and sound like? Speaking of what does a pop star look and sound like, Bad Blood. Now, it's a crown jewel in the sense that it was a hit, but I think that Bad Blood is actually kind of not a good song. And I love Bad Blood, so don't get me wrong. The hook is perfection. That chorus is addictive. The vocal production that Max Martin did on Bad Blood, on Style, on Blank Space, the way that he was able to encourage Taylor into giving these like iconic Taylor Swift only kinds of vocal performances. We hear that a lot on Bad Blood. The ad libs at the end of the song go absolutely crazy. But the pre-chorus is pretty good, but those verses are a dud. They are boring, sluggish verses, and it says something that the song didn't really become a hit until Kendrick Lamar came in and pasted over them. And also on the Eras tour, there were basically no verses invited to the party because she said, I know that this isn't good. So to me, that one was kind of like a little bit autopilot-y. But then we have something like Style, which is just one of the greatest songs ever made, one of the greatest pop songs ever made. And the fact that it is delivered by Taylor Swift is so wonderful. And what makes Style a uniquely Taylor Swift pop song and not an anyone else pop song? Well, the writing is actually really good. It's cinematic. And that's kind of how she writes with Max. It's very like vibes oriented rather than like drilling into a specific moment or a specific feeling. It's like catching a vibe. And Style is also, who was Style written about? Harry Styles. No one else could have brought that level of intrigue and double entendre into the mix, okay? Taylor Swift's reputation, for lack of a better word, plays a big part in why her Max Martin collaborations have been so successful and why they're not just more generic Max Martin pop song hits. Blank Space, full of character. And Taylor said that was a song that she'd been collecting lines for forever. And I think that's something that Max is really good at, is giving her a structure. Like, this is the structure of the song that we're doing. This is the melody. You have your words and your lyrics. They can't all fit, so you need to find a way to make it work within this template. And sometimes it's a lot easier to create as a creative when you have guidelines, when you have parameters. Speak Now is like a really daunting task because you just have the wide open road in front of you. It's a different kind of challenge. This, I think, after like 2 albums of writing so expansively and all over the place, she was really ready to focus and to get intense on one specific facet of her career, and that was the sound of being a pop star. Wonderland, Best Supporting Actress. This is a great song. I was listening to this again today, and I was like, this actually goes crazy. Like the production elements, and this is a classic Max Martin thing, the way that that song builds up to the chorus, but to the final chorus specifically, he adds in sounds and layers and vocal stacks and harmonies, and it just becomes this incredible pop banger. This definitely shares a DNA with I Knew Your Trouble as well. There is that dubsteppy element to it. And it was a bonus track, girls. It was a bonus track, okay? 1989, full of bangers, front to back. How You Get the Girl. I'm going to put her in solid attempt. I think that How You Get the Girl has an infectious chorus, but it does have a little bit message in a bottle disease of being a little too annoying. And I like it, but I wouldn't put it in like the best of the best. New Romantics. Crown Jewel or Best Supporting Actress. I think I have to save the Crown Jewels for songs that people like instantly think of when they think of Taylor Swift. New Romantics is not quite there because it was a bonus track. Why? We still don't know. We still don't know. And New Romantics is one of the best vibe songs on 1989. I think it's the tone setter for the entire album. This is the person, the character that she wants to be seen as. She is the crying but also carefree girl in the bathroom with all of her besties, taking shots at the bar, dancing the night away on the dance floor, and forgetting about all the men that have ever caused her trouble and have encouraged her to become a girl boss. So brilliantly executed and captured by Max Martin here. Then we get into Max Martin's work on Reputation. So that was pretty much almost an even split again between Jack Antonoff and Max Martin. It is interesting to me that they almost never produce together. They do separately. I think that that might be like a territorial thing somehow. Max Martin, I think, can be a little not aggressive, but I think selective about credits and credit sharing, which is one of my tin hat theories as to why Taylor stopped working with him for a period of time. She wanted a producer credit and it wasn't available to her. But now they're equals, they're on the same level playing field as she said, so she gets it. Up next is Ready for It. And now, Reputation really shows the diversity of Max Martin as a producer. And I think when you compare the Reputation tracks of a Max Martin to the Reputation tracks of a Jack Antonoff, you can really see what their individual skills are. Max Martin is really good at making different kinds of trends and sounds sound like familiar pop songs. So Taylor was pushing the boat out in what she was doing stylistically with Reputation. And a lot of the songs that she did with Jack for this record are genuinely like weird and out of left field and completely like random pop songs. But the ones that she worked with Max Martin on are pretty much standard, like bulletproof hits. Even a song like Ready for It, which comes across as very, very like different and cool and casual. When you ignore the fact that she's like rapping and dropping bars throughout and you just listen to the way that the song is composed, it's hit verse, the catchiest pre-chorus you've ever heard in your entire life, and a wallop of a chorus with a bridge that builds all the way up to the end and stacked harmonies and layers. Like, it is a classic Max Martin song. Do I put it in Crown Jewel? That is an interesting question. Ready for It is an iconic song. There's kind of nothing like it in her discography. I have to give it that. It definitely, I think, was received better in hindsight. This was not a hit when it came out, girls. Ready for It didn't really make much noise when it first came out, but it has definitely become one of the most iconic parts of the Eras tour. So I think I'm going to put it in Best Supporting Actress for now and shift her up later at the end when we reassess how I've done, see if I feel upset. Endgame. We didn't need this. I'm sorry. I think that this is a stupid song. I think this is lazy Taylor Swift, Max Martin production work. This was like engineered to be a hit. Taylor was like, I want to do a song with Ed Sheeran in Future. And Max said, okay, here's the structure. Send the verse to Ed, send it to Future, tell them to get on it, and we'll do what we need to do. It's like a less good version of Ready for It to me, to be honest. So not my favorite. I Did Something Bad. Best Supporting Actress or Solid Attempt. It's so interesting the journey I've gone on with I Did Something Bad. It used to be one of my favorite songs from Reputation. Do I think that it is that special or that good? The thing that I really like about it is that Max Martin knows, again, how to use Taylor's vocal as an instrument, the way that he processes her doing the machine gun sound, similar to how he did the clicking sound for Blank Space. Like, that is genuinely cool. But I don't know that I would say that this is a particularly memorable song from Reputation. I mean, I think that there are Jack Antonoff numbers that are stronger than I Did Something Bad. And I think there are Max Martin numbers that are stronger than this. So I'm going to put it in a solid attempt for now. And it wasn't a single. So there it is. Don't blame me. Girls, to me, if you're talking to me, if you're asking me, this is just solid attempt. Don't Blame Me, again, to me is like Taylor and Max creating on autopilot. The life and the real like propulsion on Reputation, I've realized in hindsight, comes from the weirdo stuff that Jack Antonoff added to it. If Jack Antonoff did not hop on Reputation, we wouldn't be talking about it as one of her most experimental and like weird, pushing the boat out, trying something new albums, because the stuff that she did with Max Martin, though it was incorporating the sounds of 2017, it wasn't really doing anything different in terms of like song structure. And that's not to say that a song always has to push the boat out. A Max Martin song certainly isn't going to do that generally because he has a formula and he has a recipe. But I don't think that that was a particularly interesting construction. I know people like it. The lyrics themselves also aren't even that good. Sorry. Delicate. Now, this is the Max Martin construction from Reputation that I think is definitely a crown jewel. This is like the perfect synthesis of, again, old Taylor with new Taylor. She is doing her talk singing thing, but she is also writing from a very vulnerable place and having these kind of like meandering, like intrusive thoughts. And Max Martin is able to convey those so brilliantly in the repeated refrain of isn't it, isn't it, isn't it? It kind of reminds me of Out of the Woods. We'll get to that later. But Jack Antonoff is definitely more attached to, I think, making a song sound the way a feeling feels. Whereas Max Martin is like, the song needs to sound like a perfect pop song, and the feeling is kind of like secondary to whatever it creates. First, I need to hook you in. I need you to start chewing on this like bubble gum. But I think with Delicate, it was like kind of the perfect balance of those two things. And for a long time, Delicate was the hit off of Reputation. This is before Eras Tour, before Tape Positivity. Delicate was like the most stable hit from Reputation. It was the one that did best on radio. It was the one that did best internationally. Like, for a long time, this was going to be the iconic Reputation moment because the other songs were very polarizing. So It Goes. Best Supporting Actress or Solid Attempt. I love So It Goes. But again, like, what is particularly different about it is the songwriting really different. Is that hook better than other hooks that we find elsewhere on the record? I don't know. I'm being strict, girls. I'm trying to really look for excellence. So again, I personally love this song. It has that signature 1, 2, 3 Taylor talk whispering thing that they always do together. Shellback did a really good job on the instrumentation here, but King of my heart, we didn't need this. We didn't need this. I'm not interested in it. I refuse to expand on it. Apparently, allegedly, according to Joseph Kahn, there was a whole music video for it that was scrapped. Good thought, Taylor. Well done. And we are coming to the end of our Max Martin assessment here. We have Dancing with Our Hands Tied, which I'm going to put it in solid attempt. Dancing with Our Hands Tied sounds better acoustic, which says to me that the production failed somehow. Of any of the Max Martin production work, if I have to point at one thing on this map other than Message in a Bottle and say dated, I'm going to say Dancing with Our Hands Tied. I Knew Where Trouble even sounds a little bit fresher than that. I don't know. There's something very like 2017 in a bit of a stale way when I listen to Dancing with Our Hands Tied, and I much prefer the acoustic version. So this was like a rare occasion where Max's production work overshadowed what Taylor's actually really good at, which is like a specific kind of songwriting. Now, let's talk about Mr. Antonoff and what he contributed to these albums. I think it's most interesting to talk about the stuff that he did on the albums that Max also worked on. So for 1989, he really only worked on I Wish You Would and Out of the Woods. I Wish You Would is a Best Supporting Actress. Again, none of these songs were hits, so I can't put them in Crown Jewel. I love I Wish You Would. This is one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. I also think that it's one of the best Taylor Swift Jack Antonoff songs. It was one of the earliest ones that they created together. This is like a template and a blueprint that they followed, some would say to death, for a long period of time afterwards. And I Wish You Would is a song that sounds the way the feeling felt. A lot of the songs on 1989 were about dreams. All You Had to Do Was Stay is another song that came to her in a dream. I Wish You Would is about pacing around in the middle of the night. And Jack is really good at like sharing that anxiety with Taylor and capturing it in song. And he also very successfully does this on Out of the Woods, which I'm going to put in Best Supporting Actress too. I think that Out of the Woods is like a little overlooked and a little overhated. I do see people like complaining about it a fair bit. And I think that Out of the Woods is one of the weirder songs on 1989. And I think it was really telling that it was the second song Taylor wanted us to ever hear from this record. She intentionally did not make it a single, but she wanted people to hear this preview of what this album could sound like before it actually came out, which says to me that she was having a lot of fun when she was collaborating with Jack on 1989. She was really enjoying what she was doing with him, but this is the big but. His contributions kind of burst the bubble that was created with 1989. 1989 is about distance, it's about remove, it's about arm's length songwriting. It is more about vision and vibe than it is about story. And we really can tell that Taylor was, in a certain way, censoring herself, not to keep things secret, but to achieve the mission and the focus and the goal that she set out to do when making her first bulletproof pop album. We see that so clearly in the songs that didn't make it to 1989 that were co-produced by Jack Antonoff. I'm talking about Now That We Don't Talk, Is It Over Now, and Slut. These are the songs. Now, Is It Over Now went #1. So I'm going to put it in Crown Jewel because like Jack doesn't get that many #1 hits, I think. So we have to give him his #1 hits where he gets them. I also love Is It Over Now. I think Is It Over Now is, again, another perfect example of a Jack and a Taylor intrusive thought, middle of the night moment. He, I think, makes Taylor feel really comfortable opening up and sharing her like craziest thoughts. I'm thinking of jumping off of very tall somethings just to see you come running. I don't think she was comfortable to say that in front of Max Martin at that period of time. I'm sure their relationship has evolved and changed over the years, but I think that the main strength that Jack has as a producer, and all of the pop girls have said this about him, Taylor has said it multiple times, is that he makes people feel so comfortable, and he really takes the time to like get to know the artist and understand what they want to say. And there's a lot clearer of a perspective and a feeling and an emotion on the songs that he created for 1989 versus what Max created for 1989. It's like Cool Girl versus like Anxious Girl. Now That We Don't Talk, again, I love this so much. One of my favorite Jack and Taylor collaborations too, but it's not finished. It's a song that they literally couldn't quite get it together. If you listen to the demo, it's crazy. But even in the final version that they produced, it still doesn't sound finished. And I need a minute more of Now That We Don't Talk. I really do. I love the song, but it kind of doesn't go anywhere. And that is a problem that Jack and Taylor do have from time to time with their pop. So I'm going to put it in Solid Attempt, and that upsets me. Slut, I'm going to put this in We Didn't Need This. Yeah, that was kind of the letdown of the century. Not that interesting. Kind of an indulgent, like, ooh, I really want to make something weird and I want to call it Slut. That's what it was giving. And I don't like that. Now, how could I forget Sweeter Than Fiction? This is the first ever Jack Antonoff and Taylor Swift collab. And, you know, I was listening to it again today in preparation for this video, and I was thinking, this is kind of the most straightforward pop song Jack has ever written for Taylor or with Taylor. Like, this is the least Jack Antonoff he has ever inserted himself into a Taylor Swift song. It just sounds like a Taylor Swift song that he like ornamented on. It doesn't sound like they created it together, but it does have a sound that is very like of that period of time, very fun, very Bleachers. I'm going to put it in We Didn't Need This because I didn't need it personally. So hey on that. Up next, the diva, the controversial, polarizing, Legend. Look what you made me do. Crown Jewel. She's an icon. She's the moment. She was not understood when she first came out. This is the best example of what Jack offers Taylor. If Max offers Taylor the ability to focus and be strict, Jack offers her the ability to dream and play and be imaginative and weird and indulge her tendency to just go to places you've never been before. And Look What You Made Me Do is certainly a song that has never been replicated by Jack and Taylor ever again. It is so weird. And I remember he gave an interview around Reputation and he was like, I couldn't believe that she let, of all the songs on this record, all those Max Martin songs, those hits waiting to happen, this was the one she chose to be the lead single. I mean, Tay Genius, this was the polarizing era, so she needed the polarizing song. This was the one that was going to stop traffic. And the way that it's constructed is so, I can imagine, offensive to Max Martin. It has this bizarre string instrumental opening. It has a right said Fred interpolation. It doesn't really have a chorus. It has a strange bridge. It's sparse. The production is not very intricate. It's not very layered. It's not very dense, which Max Martin is very interested in doing with his songs. So Look What You Made Me Do, it's like nothing else in her discography. And it made people think. It made people react. And I think it also like showed Taylor that she could really do whatever the hell she wanted. And that's an energy that I think is great to harness sometimes and great to put aside at other times. We got to have both. That's why we love having both Max Martin and Jack Antonoff in the Taylor Nation. It's not either or. It's, one at this time, one at a different time. Up next, Getaway Car. I really want to put this in Crown Jewel. It's not a number one hit, but I think that it is like maybe Jack and Taylor's prized possession of songs that they've created together. Getaway Car is so special. It is a really, really special song. And it is storytelling in a really like absurd cinematic way. You can hear how much fun Taylor is having delivering and writing it. And even in their writing session together, like you can just see Taylor light up. Like that is the image of an artist that has been struck by a good idea and is with someone who is equally as excited about it and ready to facilitate that idea for her. So I think that like the process of them creating it and what it ended up being is really like the best example of how they can collaborate together. But was it a hit? No, it wasn't a hit. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for bulletproof pop today. The Crown Jewels. Up next, Dress. One of my favorite Taylor Swift songs of all time. Best Supporting Actress, of course. Not filler. You couldn't call her filler. In another world, she is a single. In a world where Look What You Made Me Do was received well and everybody loved it and clapped and cheered, Dress is the follow-up single. Dress is one of the sexiest, most sensual songs. That's another side of her that I think she lets out more with Jack. This kind of like vulnerable, sensual. Again, he fosters a very comfortable environment for her. So I think she's able to like switch into modes that maybe she hasn't tested before. And sexy Taylor was really not a thing until we got to Reputation, and Dress was scandalous. She might have been cursing on I Did Something Bad, but what she was actually saying in Dress was scandalous. And again, Jack is so good at mapping the way a feeling feels onto how a song sounds. That chorus, that gasping, shuddering chorus, like that really kind of mimics the sexy vibe that Taylor was going for. Some might even call it orgasmic. This is why we can't have nice things. We didn't need this. I think that this is overindulgent. I think that this is petulant. I think that this is a good example of like what's not so good about Taylor and Jack's collaborations. Sometimes they go to a place of little kid. It happens. They go to a place of being silly, and I didn't appreciate the silliness here. It just came across as petty, and not petty with a purpose, petty with like a stick up your. So, not my favorite thing. I don't think it's productionally very interesting either. Cruel Summer. Crown Jewel. Cruel Summer is very unique for the Jack Taylor space because, again, a more conventional and traditional pop song. The way that Jack brings that bridge back around at the end of the chorus is very Max Martin, actually. I think if Max Martin were looking at all the songs that Jack did for Taylor and he was picking the ones that he liked the best or felt were the most natural hits, he would 100% pick Cruel Summer because she's the diva. She's the moment. It gets to the chorus very, very quickly. That chorus slaps you over the head. The writing is also like 1989. It's very like cinematic, hazy, atmospheric. It's kind of difficult to pin down, but you know exactly what it means. You feel it in you when you hear the song. And this has become one of Taylor's most successful hits of all time, surpassing and clearing many of the hits that she created with Max Martin. So we have to give it up to Jack Antonoff there. This was kind of an accidental hit. And the authenticity of it, the life of its own that it had, there is something to be said about how the cream rises to the top. Even if you're Taylor Swift and you try to shove it down with me and you need to calm down and pretend that it doesn't exist, the cream rises to the top. Everybody eventually figured out that Cruel Summer was the moment. I think he knows. On Lover, I think Jack was playing a little bit more Max Martin role because Max Martin wasn't on the record itself. So I think He Knows to me is like a very straightforward pop song. I think that it's really fun. It has a very signature Jack vocal thing. He loves Taylor with a falsetto and he loves to produce her voice with a falsetto. So I'm going to put that in Best Supporting Actress because she's a diva. She's an icon. She's the moment. You see how all these songs are amazing? You see how that works? Death by a Thousand Cuts. Oh, Best Supporting Actress. Best Supporting Actress. I mean, Death by a Thousand Cuts, again, a freaky deaky weirdo collaboration. It reminds me of Getaway Car. It's one of a kind, but it also has a very unique Jack Antonoff footprint and touch on it. That weird piano kind of out of time sample, the way that she kind of word vomits that bridge into the last chorus. It is a signature of their collaborations together. London Boy. I love London Boy, but I'm going to put her in Solid Attempt. I think many people view this as an embarrassing song. When we're talking about when Taylor and Jack go to a place of childish, London Boy, I Fancy You, it's a little childish. I find it fun and charming, but a lot of people found it extremely off-putting and embarrassing. So I guess it just depends on whether you're a happy or a negative person. Lavender Haze. Now, the part where Jack's pop production really starts to lose it for me is from Midnight's onwards, because it feels like at this point, Taylor and Jack had slipped into a form of producing that they were comfortable with and that they really liked. But I don't necessarily think was like the best showmanship of Taylor's qualities, either as a songwriter or as a pop performer. Some of them are okay. Like Lavender Haze, for example. Solid attempt. There's something almost right about it, and this happens with a lot of the Jack Antonoff songs, because he's more like story over melody. A lot of the songs, and Taylor is so wordy, a lot of these songs sound unedited, or they sound as though there are like too many syllables in them, too many things trying to happen at the same time, too many cooks in the kitchen. Jack is very much like everything, more, more, more. If you listen to the version of The Lakes that he produced for Folklore versus the one that Taylor preferred, you can hear exactly what I mean. He is like an ostentatious producer. He likes to augment and, decorate his songs. Max Martin, I think, focuses on a couple of sounds. Jack Antonoff builds these like really intense soundscapes. So Lavender Haze, to me, a lot of people love it. Whatever. Antihero, it's a crown jewel, I suppose, because it went number one. It's me, hi, I'm the problem, it's me. Very catchy hook. Well done, Jack Antonoff. Elsewhere, do I think it's the most interesting song in the world? Well, no. And do I think that the Jack Antonoff Bleachers remix of it is one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life? Hell yeah. If you haven't listened to that, you should punish yourself and listen to it now. Jack Antonoff, please don't sing and please don't write. That's really my feedback for him. Bejeweled. Bejeweled is one of those songs where there are too many words in it. It actually is too wordy. And there is the nugget of like I imagine this is the kind of song that Max Martin hears and he's like, oh, it's so close to being good and being right and being a perfect pop song. But there are like certain inherent structural flaws with the way that the words are delivered and the way that they're placed that it ends up not being as catchy as it could be. I still love her, but is she iconic? I don't know. Bejeweled is in Best Supporting Actress. Karma. To me, even though it didn't go number one, this is a signature Taylor Swift hit to me. Like it's a hit, it's a smash. And I think most people would agree. Karma is my boyfriend. Karma is a god. It's a breeze in my hair on the weekend. They kept it cute and simple with Karma. They didn't really mess around with it too much. Whereas with Bejeweled and Lavender Haze, I think they were like, why don't we try this? Let's do that. I want to say this. And then we get to the Tortured Poets Department. And this is where the Jack Stale allegations began. This is where people really kind of, I think, had enough of this beast. But the pop stuff, it's hard to assess the pop stuff on Torture Poets because it's just plainly not intended to be a pop album in the way that all the other albums we've just talked about are. But there are moments of pop on it that need to be discussed. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. I'm putting it in Solid Attempt. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart is lazy. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart is giving, we need to have just one pop moment here, a pop memento, like a true bubblegum-ish moment. So let's have this be it. I think it has an addictive pre-chorus, a really great pre-chorus, and everything else about it is kind of superfluous. It's way more focused on the construction of the song, the sounds of the stage, and her being on the Eras tour, reflecting the period of time rather than like creating a really great song. And I think that this song could have been a much bigger hit if it was actually written to be a hit rather than to satisfy the role of playing a hit on an album. Fortnight, we didn't need this. Fortnight accomplishes nothing. Okay, I'm sorry. It is not well written. It's confusing and vague. And also, it's not really a pop song, but it doesn't fit in with the rest of the Torture Poets Department either. It's the single. Like, it has to be considered here because it was the lead single from the record, which is still ostensibly a pop record of some description. This is the one that Taylor pushed out to radio. This is the one that she thought people would want to hear the most. And I am forever baffled by that. Forever baffled. Down Bad. Down Bad, I love you so much. Down Bad, you're everything to me. But if we're just looking at her as a pop song, I might even have to put her in Solid Attempt. Because again, those verses are weird. I like them, but there is a great pop song hiding in there. There's a Max Martin pop song in there somewhere, but it's bogged down by a lot of stuff. I love it. I love it for that reason. But when I'm looking at what's the most perfect, unassailable pop, doesn't quite fit in. My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. Solid Attempt. I really just said there's nothing to write home about that. Sorry. Sorry, doll. All right, let's take a look at where everything is and see if I need to move or change anything. Okay, so in the crown jewels, we are Never, Trouble, 22, Shake It Off, Blank Space Style, Delicate, Is It Over Now, Look What You Made Me Do, Cruel Summer, Karma, Antihero. Wildest Dreams is like right on the borderline for me, but Taylor doesn't respect it. So I guess she's gonna have to stay in Best Supporting Actress. Best Supporting Actress, I don't need to read all of these. You can read the screen yourself. How many? Who's doing better? Again, it's kind of an even split, no? I'm surprised Jack has this many crown jewels. Again, when it comes to Jack and Max, it's pretty even. I go to each of them for different things from Taylor, and I think that it is definitely the right move to be pivoting back towards Max at this specific moment in time, just because we haven't had him in a while. Let's try something a little bit different from everything we've known before. And you know what? I hope this video gave you something to think about when it comes to Jack and Max. What do you think is going to happen on the life of a showgirl? How do you think Mac's production evolution and Taylor's evolution as a songwriter and a producer in her own right, how do you think that's going to coincide to create this new 1989.2? Because that's what it's pointing towards being, isn't it?